Hey guys, it's Mr. Morales again, and we're going to talk about the geography of China today. Now, the first thing I want you to look at is where China is on the world map. If you look, remember the hemispheres we talked about earlier this year between the northern hemisphere, southern, east, and west. If you look up here, this is going to be located in the north because it's above the equator, and it's going to be located in the east because it's east of the prime meridian. So in the northeast hemisphere is where China is located. China is also located in the continent of Asia. So Asia is the most populous continent of all of them, and China is going to be the most highly populated country. So let's take a look. China is really big for one. It's even bigger than the United States. So we have a big country here in the United States, but if you throw up Alaska up here in the corner, it's still not as large as China. China is about 2% bigger than the United States. If you throw China up onto Europe, it dwarfs Europe in size. The other thing is that China is a long way from everyone. The United States is over here, China is way over here, right? If you go around the Pacific, it's still way over here. It's far away from Europe. It's even far away from the Middle East. Now, this is going to change China. It's going to make it different than the rest of the world because it's so far away and it's isolated, and we'll look at a few of the reasons why. It's going to develop differently. Now, China's geography is very diverse. If you live in one side of the country, it's different than the other side of the country. See all this brown? The darker the brown is, the higher it is. So when you're looking around in here, you're looking around 14, 15,000 feet. Up here, all the way above 23,000 feet. And over here, you're talking low river areas. So if you take a look at this next slide here, you see in the green, this is where the river valleys are. To the west on this side, you see the deserts, the plateaus, and the giant Himalayan mountains. So geography is going to totally affect how China develops as a nation. So take a look at this slide right here. You see all these areas with the different colors. These are early civilizations. One thing that they have in common is that they all develop around rivers, whether it's Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, or in China along the Huanghe Valley, they're all developed around rivers. So the two main rivers in China are called the Yangtze and the Yellow. The Yellow River is called the Yellow River because of the silt that comes down into it. It's sediment that flows off. So it makes this otherwise clear river all yellow. One thing about the Yellow River, it is very wild. If you see down here, you can see how strong the currents are. And in fact, it has a nickname called the River of Sorrows because throughout Chinese history, it has flooded time and time again, killing tens of thousands at a time. Now, the reason that people would live beside it, of course, is just the same reason they live beside the Nile. When it floods, it brings in all this good dirt. And so when the waters recede, you have great farmland through here. Today, they've built a lot of dams through here, so now it provides hydroelectric power and also still produces that fertile soil, and it enables them to grow a lot of good crops there. The other river, the Yangtze River, is where 1/3 of China's population lives. So it has these beautiful areas that you can see at the top here, just gorgeous picturesque views. But it also has a tremendous problem with pollution because 40% of the nation's agriculture and industrial economy is all located alongside this river. But this is the place where you also see all the wildlife. So this is where when you see the pandas in the zoo, they come from this area through here. One of the things that makes Chinese geography unique is the natural barriers that go all around the country. Up to the northwest, you have the Taklamakan Desert, you have the Gobi Desert straight up north, you have the plateaus off to the southwest. Now, because of this, it shielded them from a lot of invasions. A few times there were some armies that were able to get through, but for the most part, this protected them. Now, on the downside, it also stops this mass amount of trading where people are going deep into your country. So goods are going in and out, but you don't see an influx of foreigners into China because of all these barriers like you do in other places. Now, what were some of these barriers? The big ones, the Taklamakan Desert and the Gobi Desert to the north and northwest. Look at these deserts. So it's really going to be hard to put trading caravans together. They happen during the Silk Road, but you have to know what you're doing. So this stops an influx of foreigners going deep into the country. It also stops armies from coming in because really, how can you take thousands of troops across this type of terrain? You've got to have water for your cattle, the food that you're going to eat as you're coming in, for your horses, and for your men as well. Now, to the south, you have the Himalayas. Everyone knows what the Himalayas are. Imagine trying to get an army through there, even though there are mountain passes. If you were to get through there, then after you got through the Himalayas, you had to go through the Tibetan Plateau. Now, the Tibetan Plateau, a plateau, if you remember, is an elevated stretch of land. It can be 100 miles, it can be thousands of miles. This stretches on for miles and miles, as you can see. But the Tibetan Plateau is a little bit different because it's located up to 14,000 feet above sea level. So not only is it dry, there's not a lot of land. In some areas, instead of being a normal flat plateau, you have mountainous, small mountains. See the Himalayas in the background. So it is really tough to get people through. So again, another natural barrier. The final natural barrier is the ocean off to this side. So you're protected by these mountains and plateaus all through here. But then you go off this way. The United States really didn't get over there until the 1800s, right? Because you have this huge Pacific. So the whole new world basically is blocked off by this large ocean separating. So what are the results of the geography of China? Let's take a look on the left side here. So one, you see that the Chinese population, it's all concentrated in the east and southeastern part of China. So all through here where it's red, you see a higher population density. But if you look to the west, look at all this part of China. It has a very low population density. So think of like if you took the United States, cut it in half, and everything west of the Mississippi, barely anyone lived there, that would be China. And finally, if you look at the map on the right, how China is so far away from all this area here. You have the natural barriers through here. And so China becomes historically isolated compared to other nations. So unlike Europe or Africa or the Middle East, where everything is a mix and you have all these traditions and cultures all mixing in together, not as much of that is going on in China. So it becomes a more distinctly unique culture. It also develops a distrust of foreigners because you don't have all these foreigners coming in through the ages. And when they finally do come in, which we'll talk about later, it doesn't work out so well. And there you go. That's the geography of China.